Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 3 of the Futbol Fetish podcast. Thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to look back at Arsenal's game versus Brighton, talk about some of the refereeing inconsistencies we're seeing, and more. Let's get it started. So, the restart has been undeniably disastrous for Arsenal. The Homer Simpson falling out of an ambulance off of a cliff meme really describes it well. In the 2 games since we've come back from the coronavirus break, we've conceded 5 goals and only scored 1. To make things worse, we got off to a relatively good start against Brighton. The Nicolas Pepe goal was absolutely disgusting and was something I think all of us fans have been waiting to see since we watched YouTube highlights of him doing that regularly in League One. It was nice to see him show us that £70 million quality. Then we quickly conceded one of the scrappier goals you'll ever see, and it all went to complete shit at the end after a Neil Maupay 95th minute winner. It was a nice finish by Maupay, and he's been getting a lot of abuse from the Arsenal fans online, as he was also the one that pushed Leno and caused his injury. And I can understand some of the frustration, but I do feel he's being used as a bit of a scapegoat. I wish our players would show that same desire. The push on Leno might have been a bit much, admittedly, but he's getting the brunt of the frustration that should really be aimed at the team and referee. I'll give some credit where it's due. Brighton are in good form right now. They tied Leicester in their first game back after the break, and they just beat us, so they are in a team to mess with right now. But when you have a 1-goal lead in the second half, you can't help but feel like that's 3 points dropped. Our finishing was pretty abysmal overall. They made some great defensive saves at the end, but when you have £200 million of attacking talent in Lacazette, Aubameyang, and Pepe as our front three, the finishing should really be a lot crisper. I don't want to shift too much of the blame onto the attackers, as I think the midfield is really where the gist of our problems lie. Xhaka has been sorely missed since he went down injured against Man City pretty much immediately, and the stats prove it. Since Arteta has taken over as skipper, Xhaka has completed a full 99 times so far, and in those games we have 0 defeats, 4 clean sheets, and are only conceding a goal every 90 minutes. In the 3 games he has failed to complete a full 90, things go to complete shit, having had 3 defeats, 0 clean sheets, and we concede a goal every 34 minutes. It's truly a night and day difference when he's out there, and I think a lot of that has to do with his leadership qualities. He holds his teammates and also the referee accountable. No disrespect to Aubameyang as a captain, because he's a hell of a player and everyone around the club loves the guy, but when Xhaka is out there, you can often see him chirping the ref and when calls go against us and standing up for his guys. The Maupay Leno incident is a good example of this. Nobody got in Maupay's face or pushed him or anything until after the game when Guendouzi did it. I have a feeling Xhaka would have been right there. Ceballos and Guendouzi are our de facto midfield pairing with all the injuries going on in the midfield, and to be fair to them, they have a lot of quality as individual players, but tactically they don't show any cohesion and any ability to control a game. Guendouzi putting a choke slam down on Maupay after the game was a personal highlight for me, but it does show a lot of the immaturity that people around the club have spoken to, and Arteta is clearly not a big fan of. Xhaka played on the left side of a midfield 3 and operated almost as a hybrid winger, using the space Aubameyang cleared out, playing as a forward-minded wing player. I thought this was a really clever tactical nuance from Arteta and showed some of the versatility of Xhaka as a player. He was probably our best player on the day, and hopefully we can get him signed up long-term sooner rather than later, as his price probably goes up every time he takes a pitch. Truly a fantastic young player. I know things haven't gone exactly as we would have hoped for Arteta in his brief stint with us so far, but despite the results, I've been nothing but impressed with the guy. He's really gotten the short end of the stick on a number of occasions, and in only the 12 games he's managed, we've gotten 3 red cards and 9 in-game injuries. Truly insane numbers, and I think part of it has to do with our treatment from referees across the board. I'm going to throw out a few statistics regarding Arsenal's disciplinary record and treatment from officials that on their own could be weird anomalies, but as a trend I think shows some inconsistencies in how we are being officiated. Arsenal have the most yellow cards in the league with 65 and the most red cards in the league with 4, while only being 14th in the number of tackles made. Arsenal earn a card on average every 4.4 fouls, whereas for Liverpool they get a yellow card for every 8.5 fouls. Man United gets one every 5.9, Chelsea 5.7, City 5 flat, Spurs 4.7. When teams play us, they get away with 7.73 fouls before they get a yellow card. That is an astonishing difference. Not a single team playing against us this year has received a red card. Only 2 times this season has a player been allowed to commit 6 fouls or more in a game without getting booked. Both times it happened against Arsenal, one of which was Basuma on Brighton just this past weekend, and earlier it was Jordan Ayew of Crystal Palace. Again, if these were one-off statistics, I would probably ignore them, but they're clearly part of a trend, and just watching the games and watching all the other teams play, there's such clear inconsistencies. Despite all the bullshit that's been stacked up against him, David Ornstein said he spoke to Josh Kroenke and Edu, and they're still incredibly impressed with Mikel Arteta as both a person and a professional, and they are going to back him as much as they can. This is really good news to me, as I don't want our club to have a managerial carousel, and we're pretty clearly at a point where a long-term rebuild is needed. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's also important to remember how new Arteta is at this, being his first head coaching job. It physically pains me to see us so low on the table, but a year without European football could be really advantageous for us. We still have some routes to possibly get Europe, but it's not looking incredibly likely right now. If we only have to focus on domestic football next year, we won't need as deep of a squad, and that will allow us to make some tough decisions on our fringe youngster players like Reece Nelson, Mavropanos, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, and Joe Willock. Now, I'm not saying that we should necessarily sell all of them, but they're currently not really providing much value to the squad, and they have definite value in the transfer market. They could be used to raise funds for, say, a Thomas Partey or a center back that's so desperately needed. That will be it for today's episode. Thank you for joining me. If you're still here, please like, subscribe, comment below. Mahalo. Appreciate you. Goodbye.